I now have a little banner icon to put up on this YouTube to let everybody know that we're live rather than it just being a picture of the logo. So give me just 2 seconds to set that up. Hello, YouTube people.
Hello.
Okay. Uh, so are we looking forward to Imola?
Yeah. Ish. Happy F1's back.
Okay then. Let us get into this. Um, do, 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 do. Hello, YouTube. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you're joining us, leave a like, leave a share, leave a subscribe, and comment any comments that you might have as we go through this, and let us know your thoughts. Hello, and welcome to the Everything F1 podcast. My name is Sean, and joining me today to preview I'm not going to do the full name of it yet, Imola Grand Prix is James. Evening, James.
Evening, how we doing?
I'm very good. I'm looking forward to a triple header, and we also have Coops. Hey, Coops.
Hello. How's it
Are,
going?
are we all looking forward to a triple header?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The last one was
definitely.
good if you're an Oscar Piastri fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this one has Monaco in it.
That
Mm.
is very true.
Yeah. We'll see where Monaco goes with two stops.
Monaco and Imola, which is it's pretty Monaco kind of, isn't it? But we'll
Mm.
get into that. There, it's not all doom and gloom. We are, of course, Everything F1. You can check us out on all socials. You'll find us at EF1 official on TikTok and at Join EF1 everywhere else. You can also check out our website, everythingf1.com, for daily news and articles as we get into the summer of motorsport as well. Obviously, there's lots of other competitions on at the moment. There's F2, there's F3 is coming back, there's F1 Academy, there's WEC, there's IndyCar, everything. You'll find all of our news and updates and articles on everythingf1.com. You can also check out our sponsors, theraceworks.com, if you're looking for some F1 or motorsport merch. Theraceworks.com, use code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site wide. And of course, as always, we are doing a giveaway over on our YouTube channel. If you're already listening to us on YouTube, thank you very much. Make sure you hit subscribe. And if you listen to us anywhere else, head over to our YouTube channel. You'll find us Everything F1, all one word. Hit subscribe. That's all you have to do. You go into our draw for a Lego F1 Speed Champion set to give away when we hit 500 subscribers. We're nearly there. So the quicker we can get that done, the quicker you can win yourself a prize. So head over to YouTube channel and hit subscribe. Excuse me. Now then, I'll do it properly this time. Formula One AWS Gran Premio del Made in Italy e dell'Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, otherwise, of course, known as Imola. And I apologize profusely to all of our Italian listeners because I may have butchered that one a little bit. It's a difficult one. Imola Grand Prix, of course, this weekend, returned to Formula One a couple of years ago. 4.909 kilometer track, 19 turns. You know, it's thrown up some should we say politely and not drill it up too much, memorable moments in Formula One history. Of course, we can't talk about Imola without thinking at least about 1994, when, of course, we lost Ratzenberger and Senna. But last year's results saw Max Verstappen on pole. He went on to win the race with Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc behind him, and George Russell got the fastest lap. So, ooh, right off the bat, James, what are your thoughts on Imola?
I think it's one of those. It brings back nostalgia of Formula One history. I think back to it's probably the best race that we've had without any overtaking. I think back to Alonso and Schumacher 2005. I think that sort of sums it up. Probably actually the track. It's obviously hard to overtake. And while when it was off the calendar, I don't think Formula One particularly missed it once it left in was it
Mhm.
2006. I think it was the final race, and obviously it came back with COVID during 2020. And I think it served quite a good purpose. But like you say, it's tight. It's high speed, medium speed corners, hard to overtake, especially these big, large cars. Only really one overtaking spot, isn't there? Really. Um, so yeah, but I do like a classic circuit with classic corner names, with Aqua Minerali being a personal favourite of mine. That's just an absolute quality corner name. So yeah, I'll miss it for the corner names, but maybe not for the racing, to be honest.
Yeah, it's nice to go. Obviously, we're getting into the European season now, where a lot of the tracks now have corner names: Imola, Monaco, Spa, all have Silverstone, of course, all having the names for the corners rather than just the numbers. But yeah, you're right. It's we have some very exciting racing when the cars can get a little bit closer together. We had some shall we say, interesting crashes a couple of years ago. I'm going to
Mm.
casually hide the 63 on my jersey for a second while we talk about that. Coops, what are your thoughts on Imola? This potentially the last race here. Doesn't look like they're getting a new contract. Are you going to be sad about that? Do you like these nostalgic tracks, or is it just not made for modern Formula One anymore?
You've got a bit of a danger when you talk about nostalgia and tracks because people forget. It's like, yeah, but it's similar and it's nostalgic and this is it and this that and you're like, but yeah, see if you took Imola out of the fact that it's the Imola track, probably a pretty boring race. Or as we kind of talked before we started recording, Formula One's probably outgrew the track, like a lot of the older tracks around Formula One, Monaco. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, no, if it falls off the calendar, it falls off the calendar. It's one of these things. I mean, if Spa's going into rotation, no track is safe.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I'd rather keep Spa than Imola, 100%.
Yes, I think I'd rather keep Spa than Imola as well. But then, of course, it's always this sort of line of hypocrisy, isn't it? That, we complain about Imola because there's no overtaking, and where are we going in literally 1 week later is Monaco. And we throw all of the accusations of, oh, you can't overtake here, and then we go to Monaco. What was the safety car on like lap one, and then we just sort of crossed our fingers last year and hoped that Charles Leclerc didn't stuff it in the wall for 73 laps because there
in
was
fact,
there was no other chance he was going to lose that race. There was no chance for Ferrari to mess up the strategy, basically.
Mm.
well, I mean, they've actually had to change the rules to try and make Monaco more exciting. So
That is
yeah.
true. That is definitely true, and maybe that's what something like Imola needs. Of course, they are introducing this year that there will be two mandatory pit stops in Monaco this year. Maybe a track like Imola needs it, but then are you getting into just gimmicky territory? Hard to know,
Mm.
but let's have a look then at how we reckon the teams are going to do this weekend, and we'll go from back to front to get the easy ones out of the way quickly. Coops, Sauber, expecting much from Hulkenberg and Bortoletto this weekend?
No, they're going to turn up. But
They'll be there. That's
Mhm.
that's just a fact.
Yeah, that's a given. But that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. Oh,
Yeah,
oh
okay.
no! Oh, another thing, the car will be green.
Yep, I think you. Oh, do you know what's going to happen now? They're going to turn up with
Yeah.
like a red one or something like that. Or a silver one to throw back to their old Sauber sports car days. RB then, James, what do you reckon? Will Liam Lawson finally prove that maybe he deserves to be in Formula One? Because it's getting harder and harder to defend him.
No, yeah, I don't think he will. I predict that I think Hadjar's going to get points. I think I'll probably predict that for the rest of the season. To be honest, I love the kid. But I think obviously it's a track that has Lawson actually raced that in a Formula One car. I don't think he
No,
has because he
not
always did the
not
second
in
half of the
Formula One car.
seasons, didn't he? I'm sure he's obviously probably raced on it in an F2 car. So unfortunately, that's the problem with Lawson's track record at the moment. Is that he's sort of done the same circuits twice, really, isn't he? In the two seasons. So no, I think I expect Hadjar to be up there in and around the points, and Lawson probably, I don't know, 13th, 14th. That's what I'm going to predict for Racing Bulls this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair. It will very much be it'll be a qualifying track, I think. And with that in mind, I mean, Hajar has been, let's be honest, been lightning quick. He's been
Mm.
very impressive. Um, of everybody so far, unfortunately, F1 25, the new EA Sports Codemasters game released all the driver ratings a couple of weeks ago, and they rank is it Hajar the slowest? He's only got like a 68 ranking, and somehow Kimi Antonelli a
Yeah.
69 ranking. And they revealed it the weekend that Kimi got a sprint pole. So, just really poor
Yeah.
timing from EA on that one.
And
Um,
Jack and they because Jack Dillon was above both of them, wasn't he? And he's
yeah,
already out of the game
it's just been
essentially.
sacked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that game comes out in a couple of weeks, and we'll have a
Yeah,
review on it on our YouTube channel as soon as it's available. So plug, get over, subscribe.
nice.
But yeah, they have a couple of weeks now to basically change half the game
Yeah.
because they released it at an awkward time. But
No,
yeah, let's.
it's the phrase they use for games now. It's called day one patch.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly what it'll be. It'll be the day one patch where half the driver lineups change. Because even at that, when we'll get onto it a little bit later, but Colapinto might not be there by the time the game actually comes out. So
One of us could be driving for that team.
Yeah.
They're playing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I've put my application form in to run it.
Here's me doing the live report, and oh, that looks really realistic. Yeah, I'm actually in the Alpine. Oh, that'd be fantastic. I think I'd be safer at home. Moving on then to, like I said, we'll come back to Alpine a little bit later on because there's a little bit more to talk about with them over the past couple of weeks and for the next few weeks. Aston Martin then, Coops, what do we think for Aston? Again, qualifying sort of track. Lance Stroll, who's been surprisingly good when he's not been he's either been 20th or knocking on Q3. And Fernando Alonso has been doing the same, but in opposite form. He just can't seem to get in the points.
I mean, can I say it's green and it'll turn up again?
No, you've already used that one.
You've used that card.
It's a slightly darker green, and it'll turn up again. You can have that one.
You know what? Like we've all kind of accepted the fact that Lance is phoning it in. I don't think he cares. That car is not very good at all.
It's certainly not.
If Fernando Alonso of all people can't get that thing into the points at some point, and I mean he done that with GP2 engine McLaren, so he knows how to get things. I mean he dragged a McLaren car with two wheels flat and back to the pits and then got back out, and he can't do anything with that Aston Martin. So
he's been a little bit unlucky between his own ballet practice last time out and just being punted by Liam Lawson. He could have got an actually pretty decent haul of points in Miami, but
he could have, yes. And the unfortunate thing is, if anyone is trying to race Liam Lawson, you're getting punted somewhere.
Have you watched the meme video yet?
Oh yeah. That song's amazing.
You're welcome.
I think he's listening to that in his headphones just while he's driving.
You just think his engineer just plays it over the headphones,
pumping in, and that's just what's happening. Because the physical or representation of that song is the way he drives the car. So, and I mean, he's driving it straight out the garage door and the end of his F1 career because he should not be in Formula One.
Yeah. It has gotten hard to defend him. If you don't know what we're talking about, by the way, we mentioned this in Miami a couple of weeks ago. Just Google. I'm not telling you to do this, but if you'd like to understand the anecdote here, Google the I'm Liam Lawson song and make your own mind up, have your own opinion about Liam Lawson. That's perfectly fine, but I dare you not to laugh at that one. It is funny.
And I mean, the thing what makes it even worse is that with all the driver changes that Red Bull have done over the years, Liam Lawson is the only one who's really proven them right, which is really bad.
Which is annoying when we really, really, really want to hate on Red Bull, especially this season.
Yeah, and every time he goes on the track, you kind of go, yeah, okay, Horner. Yeah, you kind of got that one right.
Yeah.
They should never have been in the car in the first place.
So they're still wrong. They're still
wrong.
They're still net incorrect. But yeah, it's who knows? Maybe Colapinto will take that seat in 5 races. Moving on then to Haas, currently sat 6th, 6 points clear of Aston Martin on 20 points, but a chunk behind Williams now. They're 17 points behind Williams, and where they are fighting and where Williams have been, we'll get onto that in a few minutes. That's not great for Haas. What do you reckon for them this weekend, James?
I must admit, I quite like Haas. Obviously, it's tricky if you think the top 4 teams will take the top 8 places in the race. It sort of only leaves two 2 points scoring positions up for grabs. I know Williams, obviously, both of them got in there last weekend in Miami. But I think Haas, I think Behrman's done a fantastic job in that Haas, and actually, I feel like he's probably outperformed Ocon in general this season. I know Ocon's obviously joining a new team and everything, but I like him. And I think they did well in China, which has got some similar sort of medium to high speed corners, which might suit the car. I can't remember what they did in Miami, but I think they'll be in and around it. They seem to be either one's doing really well, one's doing really badly, like per
Mm.
weekend. It seems to be quite a mixed bag for them, but I like them. I think they could do the decently. Will they get into the points? Probably not. I think the Williams might be snatching that at the moment because they are that step above, especially they showed in Miami. I don't know if they had upgrades there, but they definitely moved forward in that respect. So and seem to have been the best of the rest in general. But I think I think they could be decent. You never know, may scrape a point. It could be a bit of a crazy race. If anything, I hear there could be a little bit of rain on Sunday, but I think we say that every weekend with Formula One,
Looks
hoping.
we do. I have the weather report there. It's saying rain on Friday, sunny on Saturday, and potentially cloudy
Yeah,
rain on Sunday.
that's how they get
But
us. That's how they get us.
sunny at first, becoming partly cloudy from noon with threatening convective clouds.
Convective,
Which means
nice.
that, Crofty is going to have a field day looking
Oh
at
yeah.
radars of just a circle around the track that's crystal clear and then thunderstorms in the rest of Italy. Is basically what that means. It's interesting you say there about, all these kind of done better. The points scored would suggest he hasn't because he only has 6 points to Ocon's 14th. But
Oh, interesting.
Ollie has 3 point scoring finishes to Ocon's two. Where
Yeah.
that really affects though is Ocon obviously got fifth in
In China, wasn't
China.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
fifth in China, eighth in Bahrain. Ollie had eighth in China, and then 2/10 back to back in Japan and Bahrain. But
interesting.
where they're falling off elsewhere, Ollie is doing a bit better. Obviously, he retired in Miami, but he was 13th in Saudi, 14th in Australia. Ocon, by comparison, has a 13th and 18th, a 14th and a 12th. So, with the exception of that fifth, they're very evenly
They're hanging
matched,
around each other.
which you could fairly say is better in Ollie's favor, being the rookie. Yes,
Mm,
obviously, Ocon moving into a new team. Ollie did have a couple of races with them last season, but I mean, Ocon's been in the sport for a long time now.
yeah.
So yeah, I think Ocon's a good benchmark for someone like Ollie Behrman. And yeah, let's hope they do well this weekend. But Williams, of course, they were the big winners in Miami. Alex Albon had a fantastic fifth. Carlos Sainz finished ninth, which he was a little bit unhappy about. I think it's fair to say. This is not how I go racing was his quote. I think things calmed down a little bit. They talked it out. They realized, there were extenuating circumstances of that one. But what do we reckon for Williams this weekend, Coops? Will this track suit their car? It's very tight and twisty compared to Miami, which is just super slow speed and then high straights.
I think so. No, Carlos Sainz really needs to kind of buck it up a wee bit. He's kind of settled himself in after a poor start, but I think did he not was it the sprint where he clipped a wall on the left hand side and knackered it up, which caused all the drama. So he's just not quite got the handle on it yet. But I've got a feeling they'll do okay. I think Albon's pretty secure, comfortable with the car, generally speaking. I think the car can be a bit peaky. I don't think they've found the operating window that works like generally works with every track. I think when you get to this, obviously we know with this generation of Formula One cars the operating window is very small.
Mm.
But I think they should be fine. I think they'll be in front of the Hassies, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think so. And we said it last time out. They're sat there on they're 17 points ahead of Haas. They're on 37 points. So they're already the best part of 60 behind Ferrari. But 17 points ahead of Haas when I'm looking at the stats here, the results of the season so far. Out of not including the sprints, out of 12 potential points finishing positions between two cars over 6 races, they've only missed out 4 times, and two of them were retirements for Carlos Sainz. The other was a 14th and a 12th, respectively, Sainz to Albon. So they have pretty much been in the points as much as they possibly could be in the points. And to your point earlier, James, on if the top four teams are scoring the top eight positions and it's those bottom 2 points, those are exactly the positions with a couple of eighths and fifths here and there that Williams are getting into, and that's exactly where they need to be. But they catch the top four, it's very unlikely. But it's pretty likely that, as you said before, they're probably going to end up in a position where Aston were previously of just being kind of wedged in fifth.
No man's
like
land.
a
Yeah.
complete no man's land, not a snowball's chance in hell of top catching the top four, but equally as good. Like there's no chance anyone behind them is going to catch them. But bar a Brazil 2024 happening three times and Alpine getting six podiums. Um, but I don't think that's going to happen. Alpine can't even get a team principal at the moment. I'm really teasing up Alpine. We will get to them. We are teasing them. Let's get to those top four though. We'll start with Red Bull. Who are bringing upgrades this weekend, have had, oof, they had both drivers scored points last time out. Yuki Tsunoda did get in with 10th place in Miami, but they are already quite a way behind McLaren. They're the best part of 150 points off McLaren. And that's it, unassailable, I would say, when McLaren don't look like they're slowing down. But what do we think for James for this weekend for Red Bull? Obviously, the big factor in that is just Max Verstappen, because obviously he was on pole in Miami. He dominated from the front in Japan. So I suppose we might even do this in two parts. How do you think Max will do? And then how do you think Yuki will do this weekend?
Yeah, it's an interesting guy. I know obviously that there's been a lot of talk in the week about McLaren's brake system
Hmm.
and how they're keeping their tires, keeping their tires. I think Toto Wolff said that actually, we can match them over one lap, but they just can do it every single lap. And I think that's definitely what we're seeing in qualifying, that the teams are much closer, but actually when McLaren can get into free air and actually run their race, they are much quicker. So I expect Max to be still right in and around it. I think Imola's also a bit of a driver's circuit. I think because it being narrow, free flowing, I think that sort of leans into the driver can make a bit more of a difference. It's undulating, there's some tricky braking zones down into the revatas at the bottom of the hill, things like that. Aqua Mineralis, so not Aqua Mineralis are tricky, but then very Alti Answer at the top of the hill as well. So there's some tricky corners. So I expect him to be in the top three. I think by default, it feels like it's the two McLarens and Verstappen are going to be in around that top three. Maybe George sneak in every now and again, but I think that's just the way it's going at the moment. But I'm actually backing Yuki to have a better weekend. I'm expecting him to be in and around the big teams. I don't think he's maybe not necessarily qualifying fourth or fifth. I think he's going to be probably in around the Ferraris, in the back end of the top four. But I see him making small incremental steps. He's in and around it. I think maybe it's just because I quite like Yuki Tsunoda, but I hope he does sort of pierce into that top eight. I say, he's going to be in and around it, but who knows? But I hope he does. I think maybe if the Red Bull upgrades seem to work, I think they do need to start making a car that can work for the other driver a little bit more as well. But that's probably my wishful thinking. But I think it's going to be a good, it should be a decent weekend for Red Bull. But like you say, they don't have two drivers that can be right at the top at the moment. And that even though the Constructors' Championship shifted around so much last year, McLaren's lead is pretty big already. And like you say, even if the others start catching up, I don't see the McLarens really dropping out of the top five or six. Do you know what I mean? Over weekends, so they're going to be in around it. But I think Verstappen. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes pole. To be fair, because I think it feels like that sort of Verstappen circuit, and he's been in and around it the whole time. So yeah, I hope so. Tsunoda has a better weekend. I think he will do. Just make small steps to build back up and get to the front. I don't think he's going to be troubling the front row, but I think he'll be there or thereabouts. I think sixth, seventh, eighth.
He did say in Japan, which is probably the last track we had that will be even sort of similar to Imola in terms of it fast and flowing as opposed
Mm.
to stop start, low, tricky, fiddly kind of corners. That he was starting to understand the car. Obviously, they then just lumped on a load of downforce, which helped him, but not his lap times. Because fast and flowing though it might be, Monza does have two enormously long straights. Or sorry, Suzuka
Imola.
has two enormously long straights, where Imola absolutely doesn't. So they
Mm.
could probably lump that amount. It's a high downforce track anyway. So to your point there, Yuki hopefully will do well this weekend, and the car might be set up a little bit more to suit him this weekend. Home favorites then, Ferrari Coops. They do have upgrades this week. Oh, it's hard to know. Is that going to be enough? Again, you look at the standings, they are 104 points behind McLaren already, and we've only had six races. So they're bringing upgrades this weekend. It is their home race, well, the first of two. But how do you think they're going to do? And at what point do Ferrari, in particular, sitting in second place, say, "Nah, we're ready for 26 now. We'll leave off this year's car"?
It won't be too far away going by the performance they're having just now. And it's just, it's annoying because Ferrari are a team. Last year, you're like, yeah, they've made a step. Next year, they're going to be up there. It's going to be a fight. I think we all said it
Mm.
when we came to the end of the season. Like, really looking forward to being a Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, with Mercedes probably there or thereabouts. And Ferrari are just nowhere. They're just, you know, really, really disappointing. And it's really hard to predict what will turn up. They could end up eighth and ninth with just no pace, or they could end up lucking into some decent strategy calls and end up in the podium. Uh, I think Hamilton will still struggle slightly compared to
Mm.
Leclerc because I just don't think he's quite getting a handle of the car. He's fast becoming the Ricardo of Ferrari, where he just isn't getting a handle on it, and slowly but surely Formula One is starting to retire Hamilton. Whether
Mm.
that'll be the same when the new regulations come in next year, I don't know. But at the moment, it's just Formula One's moved away from him, and he's just not quite able to adapt to it. And the car's not helping.
Mm.
Let's hope that these the upgrades that they're bringing will do something because they need the upgrades. That's the point. It's not like they're near the front and McLaren are brilliant. They need the upgrades to keep them up there, to keep them close, to at least try and get something. I don't think it will be that long before most teams go, do you know what? With a couple already have. I think Mercedes have. I think they've got some in development channels already, but I don't think they're making any more.
Mm.
I think Aston Martin said pretty much from the start, and I think Stake are similar. Uh, so yeah, they're just the team that I would hate to be a Ferrari fan because you're getting disappointed,
Mm.
and that's just how it's going to be until they get their
I,
finger in and figure it out.
I kind of saw this coming as soon as they announced towards the back end of last season, start of this season, that this year's car would be Fred Vasseur said it's like 90% different, something like that. And even as not necessarily a Ferrari fan, I was getting flashbacks to McLaren 2013, where they did the exact same thing. They were winning the race. They were the only team that was challenging for the championship other than Red Bull. They were winning races left, right, and center. The only thing that was letting them down is their Mercedes engine, ironically, kept going pop, which is why Lewis left. And they changed the entire concept of the car going into the final year of a rules regulation because they said, oh, we can't develop the other one anymore. Who cares? You can't develop the other one anymore. No one else is developing their car. You're winning races. Stay there. Why take such a gamble, waste such an enormous amount of resources, only to have to throw all of it out 3 months later to start focusing on next year anyway? I found that so strange, and I'm a little bit disappointed by Fred Vasseur for that one, actually, for allowing that to be the direction they took, because ultimately the buck stops with him on stuff like this. And I think someone like him should have known a bit better, going, okay, we might not win the championship next year. McLaren are too far ahead. Let them have it. McLaren probably are already shifting focus to next year. They are comfortably clear, and no one's going to develop to catch them up. It's a different scenario to last year. Obviously, last year, McLaren brought their upgrade in Miami, caught up, overtook, and won the championship because Red Bull were falling apart. They only had one driver. Ferrari had an absolutely rubbish summer. But Ferrari, after their crap summer, came back to only lose the championship by 15 points. They were one result going their way away from a championship, and they decided, yeah, no, we'll change the car. I find that so strange, and
Yeah.
it's now the second time in my memory that we've seen something like that I could vividly remember, and I cannot comprehend what genius decided that was the right way to go for Ferrari this year. Moving on then to Mercedes, also have upgrades this weekend. They are the closest team to McLaren this year. They're currently second. Sorry, did I say Ferrari were 104? Ferrari are a lot further than that. Ferrari are on 94 points. McLaren are on 246. Mercedes are on 141 points. 104 behind McLaren. But they have upgrades coming this weekend. But I would be shocked, James, if this isn't the last round of upgrades they bring because they're sick of this generation of cars. They're looking at next year going, yay, it's like 2014 again. And they are probably pretty willing to sacrifice this year. If they can get Kimmy and George a win for PR's sake, they will. But I'd be shocked if this isn't their last round of upgrades. What do you make of Mercedes' chances this weekend?
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely been the second most consistent car, across the board. I think obviously I find it's quite hard to rate the Red Bull because we never quite know how max focused it is. But I think it's going to be an interesting weekend because obviously Antonelli's coming into his first home race,
Mhm.
which will be interesting. I'll be intrigued to see. Quickly to go back to Ferrari, the effect that Tifosi has on the two Ferraris. I know Charles has been there before, but he'd see if it boosts Lewis, and then obviously we'll see if it boosts Antonelli as well. It'll be an interesting. The Ferrari fans at Tifosi will be rooting for three drivers this weekend. So, and I expect Antonelli to be quick, and he's tested at Imola a lot with the Mercedes back in 2 or 3 year old Mercedes in his testing era a couple of years ago and last year. So he should know the circuit very well. So, and I'm sure he raced there in junior form and everything like that. So I think they're going to be good. I think they're probably second team to beat this weekend. If Max is in and around it, I think those two are going to be up and down. I think Anthony, I think he's just keeps getting better and better, and
Mhm.
he's pulled out a few really good. Obviously, he got the pole position for the sprint race in Miami, but it's been a few times when he's been up and around it. So I think they could be good, and I think I'd like to think they're going to continue with the upgrades until maybe the summer break, for example. I think that's probably where going to be the final bits of cut off will happen anyway. But I think they have a real opportunity to solidify second in the championship. I know they're probably. I think it's Red Bull third. Is that the next team after
Red
them?
Bull is third, yeah.
Yeah, and I know there's a little bit of a gap there, but I think they can see themselves, let's really take advantage of this and secure at least second in the championship, and see what happens. But like you say, they're probably rubbing their hands together for next year. It's widely thought the Mercedes engine is going to be the best, and they can go from there really. But I also think that both drivers want to win as much as they can and potentially see an opportunity. But I think McLaren obviously just a little bit far ahead at the moment. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Antonelli at his home Grand Prix 'cause he could be a bit outrageous in the race, putting off some crazy moves or going for things. It could be really entertaining, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. As Martin Brundle always likes to say, the home crowd do give you an extra tenth and a half.
Mm,
And it's not so much your team's home crowd, it's your own home crowd. And this is he's the only Italian driver. He's the first Italian driver, as we said, in quite a while. Was it would have been Giovinazzi was the last Italian
Giovinazzi,
driver,
yeah.
and he wasn't exactly challenging for podiums and wins.
No,
So I think the last Italian driver to give, Italians anything to really scream about was probably Fisichella, wasn't it?
Fisichella,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's the last Italian to win any race was Malaysia 2006 was Fisichella, and the last Italian to win in Italy was, I believe, Riccardo Patrese in 1990. So that was in Monza, not Imola, but still in Italy. So they've been a bit starved for a top quality front running driver for a while. So yeah, let's hope Kimi could do well this weekend. Finally, then Coops McLaren. Well, second to finally because we still haven't done Alpine yet. Um,
Mhm.
McLaren, obviously the big news that came out between Miami and now was their brake system. Can you educate us a little bit more on exactly what they found? They found to be completely legal, which obviously Christian Horner disagrees with, because of course he does. But furnish us a little bit more information on what McLaren are doing with their brakes, if you could, please.
Well, from what I gather, and I'll need to look at it a bit in a wee bit more detail, but from what my understanding is, they've managed to figure out a way that use the brake system to keep the tires cooler. Because as we all know, with the Pirelli tires, the minute you overheat them, you're in trouble. Haas had that problem for a number of years. They had a great car over one lap. They were up in fifth, sixth qualifying, but the minute they hit the race, they ended up 15th because they couldn't keep their tires in the window. Um, I haven't had a chance to delve completely into what it is they've done, but obviously, I mean, Christian Horner's going to come out and say we don't like it, even though it's legal. Every team principal would say something. I mean, I know it's Christian Horner, he likes to play villain, but most of them would. It's just that he knows what role he plays. I mean, if you put it in WWE terms, he's the heel of Formula One. He's the guy that smashes the favorite over the back of the head with a chair and laughs at it and stuff. So he knows that role. He is that guy. So
Hmm.
it's just another thing that it just shows that McLaren are just ahead of the curve, and that's just the thing about Formula One. And we've watched Formula One now for a number of years. That there's always one team that just gets it right, and McLaren eventually have got it right. So
They seem to be the innovative team at the moment, don't they? With obviously, I saw a cool video during the week, and it was about they've got like adjustable temperature materials. I might be getting the technical term wrong there, but it's basically materials within the brake ducts that helps insulate the tires from the extreme heat of the brakes, which is pretty cool idea to have. And I know obviously they had the mini DRS last season of the flexi wing that was outlawed. So they're definitely on top of the curve in that respect at the moment. That they are the team created these innovative solutions and being legal at the same time. So I think that shows us why they've had such a tremendous rise in the last year and a half and why they are where they are because they keep putting out these if that is the case of these cool solutions to a problem that other teams just can't see.
And the,
and
the
I mean,
important point to that one as well is like technology in the brakes that'll carry over. That's
Mm,
something that will work next year. Obviously, it allows every other team to copy it, which is fine. But they won't really be able to do it until next year because none of them will have the
mm,
resources to completely redevelop their braking system this season. Um, they might not even have the resources to do it for next year because we're quite late into the season by the time it's been discovered. But that presumably for the most part will carry over to next year.
yeah.
So already you look at Mercedes engine, arguably the best driver lineup in the sport. Leave your comments if you disagree with me. I'm sure almost everybody does. But the results don't lie this season, do they? The best technical team in terms of what they're, as you said, they're the most creative, and they've stolen a march with the best brakes and the best tire management, which again will carry over. So, yeah, McLaren already look pretty good for next year. Obviously, we're only 6 races into this year, but it's interesting. Coops, obviously the drivers for McLaren on just ridiculous form at the moment. Piastri's again not counting sprints. Ninth, first, third, first. He's got three in a row now. Lando Norris, by comparison, first, second, third, fourth, second. So not out of the running by any means. Still within touching distance, but 16 points off Oscar now. But we're coming into a run of races where this is where Lando really started to turn it on last season. I think we saw Oscar's tire issues were still a problem last year. This braking thing seems to help him more than maybe it does Lando. But what do we expect from the McLaren drivers this weekend? Who does Imola suit more?
like before I jump onto that, I had a quick look to find out a bit more about the brake system. So Red Bull, being Red Bull, decided to shoot a thermal camera at McLaren at Miami, and they realised that the McLaren rear brake system was running consistently cooler than theirs, and they went, "What's going on?" So there hasn't been any kind of brief of what they've done, McLaren, but it's to do with the rear brake drum, which is basically just cooler in general than any of the other teams, because the heat from the drum goes to the tyre, which causes the issues, which means you have to slow down, you have to do all that kind of watch your tyre temperatures, get out of the dirty air. They then ran to the teacher and said, "They're cheating." The FIA went, "All right, okay, fine." They had a quick look, done some testing, and went, "It's legal." They haven't said what it is they're doing. McLaren, for obvious reasons, are going, "We're not doing anything, just a break. It's fine." So there's some sort of clever tactic, or not tactic, engineering that they've figured out when they've designed the rear brakes. It's the rear brakes that seem to be the focus at the minute. Whether the rear brakes, the way they work the rear brakes translates to the front, I'm not sure. But it's the rear brakes that Red Bull were complaining about. And however they've managed to do it, they basically just keep their brakes cooler consistently. So how they've managed to design that is the question that Red Bull are going, what are they doing? Basically, it's because they never thought of it first. So that's why. So there you go. Moving on to the drivers. I'm going to go with Piastri. I think Piastri's going to nail it on. I just don't. I still just can't get my head around why Norris isn't getting rid of these mistakes and why Piastri can just jump in and just seems to be consistently getting on with it. I think there seems to be an issue over pressure. I think Norris is putting a wee bit too much pressure on himself, or he just isn't able to get those wee kinks out. Because we've all seen them. If anybody who watches Formula One with any kind of consistency, Lando gets himself in good situations and makes wee mistakes or misjudgments. We saw it this season when he was battling George Russell in Bahrain. He just made the wrong decision and he kept making the wrong decision. Or it's not necessarily the wrong one. It's more that it's the one that's easy for someone else to deal with, or it's the more predictable maneuver when it comes to passing. We talked about it when we were watching the Grand Prix the last time about racecraft. He just doesn't quite have the same racecraft as Piastri does. So I think they'll both be up the front, but I think this is at the moment it's Piastri's. It's not Piastri's championship to lose because we're too early on, but it's his to win, which we weren't thinking that to start off with. We were kind of thinking Norris and Piastri will probably push Norris, but now it's the other side, which is it's quite interesting. I think when we get really to the nitty-gritty in the second part of the season, it's going to be interesting how the teams work it, because I think the last time McLaren had a driver feud go for a championship, it didn't end well.
They've not got a good track record with that, have they?
I assume you're not talking about 2010.
Well, I'm talking about Alonso and Hamilton and the fact that that team should have won the championship and should have won constructors. It was the best car out there. They ended up winning nothing.
Nothing at all.
Get disqualified, in fact.
They got disqualified indeed, which led to car number 23 winning the championship on consecutive years, which is one of the weirdest stats ever. A British driver winning their first championship on consecutive years with car number 23. Hamilton in 2008 and Button in 2009 for those younger amongst us who don't remember so far into the past. Yes, so that'll cover us for 9 of the 10 teams. Now we get into the fun one, Alpine, because there's been virtually no other news, with the exception of McLaren's brakes, just because Christian Horner needed to deflect away from the fact that apparently he's getting sacked after Imola, completely unfounded. Just read that on a blog site somewhere. No idea where that came from, but if one person said it, maybe 2 people are saying it, and that would just be hilarious. Alpine.
Are you just talking about Horner and the potential sacking? Because
yes.
I just noted that down because I was like, oh wait a minute, I haven't seen this.
Okay, so it's officially from 2 sources now.
It's not. It's again where I found it. It was very much like yourself. Sources are saying, "Oh, this could happen." So it's. The couple other wee bits to touch on before we go into the epic discussion of Alpine. Because,
go ahead.
So the swearing fine has been reduced from €40,000 to €5,000.
Yes.
Should be 0, but anyway.
They've also clarified the difference between controlled, essentially interviews, i.e. the paddock, and the post-race interviews and stuff like that, which I think we've kind of said that a couple of times now. I think we're in full agreement of we don't want Max Verstappen, just going to pick on him for a sec, going in, swearing and blinding at the press, because there's just no point and that's not fair. But on his radio, which is now uncontrolled, they're classing that as, he could say whatever the hell he wants, which I'm sure makes Yuki Tsunoda very happy as well.
Yes. Also, while I was just double checking any other news, the FIA president, our friend Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who is running the FIA really well.
Yeah, really well. We definitely didn't do a whole video on how well he's doing. Yeah,
he's amazing. Amazing. Anyway, so apparently he's put in some proposed changes to the statutes of motorsports governing body that appear to further extend his control. Interestingly enough, the members have signed NDAs, so the BBC, who's seen this confidential document, haven't been able to get people to officially come out and say it, but some folk have talked kind of quietly. Because this NDA thing in the FIA seems to be part of his plan. Where it does things like it stops, like it puts a limit on when people can stand against him, which means that he could ban someone from standing against him if it doesn't meet a certain criteria. Like, he can do it. He's also, there it is, he's brought forward a deadline for candidates for December's presidential election, so he's just basically moved the goalposts.
Is it tomorrow or something?
Yeah, basically like, oh yes, you were thinking too late, we've changed it.
Yeah.
He's done that from a panic that Carlos Sainz Sr. is seriously
definitely going to beat him.
And would walk into that job and stay in it until he dies.
Yep. So the BBC here have also noted no critic was prepared to comment on the record about the changes. Many are bound by non-disclosures, which I just touched on. The proposals, one said, most proposals aim at some sort of consolidation of power, more centralised control, and trying to eliminate independent checks and balances. Now, that has never went down well any situation. Another document contains proposals that were very cleverly written. It's taken a very moral high ground, they said, or it's appearing to, whereas in reality of it, it's probably less so. So, and someone, William criticised last night, what worrisome concentration of power by some of its member clubs. So obviously, like that kind of language coming out from the members is really worrying about what he's trying to do. Like, you've done 4 years, you've basically messed it up. Just move on. If someone else comes in and decides they want to do a better job, then
it's a
crack on.
weird thing. It's a weird
Yeah.
thing to want to kind of run dictatorially.
Yeah.
Because it's okay, the best one in the world. Yes, okay, it's a very, very senior job and it oversees almost every major motorsport in the world. So what? You
Yeah.
don't have control of a country. You don't have control of like a nuclear arsenal. You don't have control of a military. You have control of some very rich people who drive around in circles once a week.
Yes, and
What a control freak.
he just wants to seem unbelievably important and like, you will not take my bag of Skittles off me, that I'm the master of the Skittles. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, just chill. It's a bag of Skittles, man. Relax. Just go in the corner and sort them out into colours and pick the one you want to eat first. just like that. That's not a hint about what I do with them, by the way.
That came too quickly to you, I think.
Oh no, I can't.
Do you know
M&Ms,
what I mean?
anything with colours, they have to be in order. Can't eat them unless they're in order.
Blimey.
Anyway, so
Well,
it's another we could
Strange,
probably,
isn't it?
you know, when we get a break after this you know, the triple header, we're going to need to sit down and try and kind of work out, have a discussion with our fellow Everything F1ers about Mr. Soleim and his decision making. And
well,
it's
if you want to hear our previous thoughts from a couple of weeks ago on our good friend Mohammed Ben Sulayem and his just terrific way that he's managing the FIA, check out our YouTube video from a couple of weeks ago on exactly that topic. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'll link to that one below in the video description, so you can go back and have a look at that, because as if he couldn't get worse. But yeah, apparently Carlos Sainz Sr. wants to run. There isn't a conflict there because someone brought it up. Why could Susie Wolf not run, but Carlos Sainz Sr. can? That's because Toto Wolff has financial interest in Formula One. He owns the Mercedes. He's not just the team principal having a say in how it's run. He owns the damn team, which means he is financially connected to Formula One. Carlos Sainz just gets paid by Formula One. He has no financial backing to it whatsoever. He has no say in how anything is governed or run. What Carlos Sainz Senior, Junior, this is no say whatsoever in how anything's run. His father being the head of the FIA. Okay, yes, they're related, but there is no. It's not the same.
It's a sporting context versus financial. Isn't it,
exactly,
really?
it is. It's a and also obviously because they're married, Susie Wolf has that exact same connected financial investment in Formula One that Toto does because they're married. Carlos Sainz Jr. has no right to Carlos Sainz Sr.'s money unless he specifically says so. So it's a completely different story. But I'd love to see Carlos Sr. in that role. I think that would be the best thing for the FIA.
I think it would be good, and I think for anyone, I know we're making a lot of jokes and being a bit kind of snide with our comments about Ben Sulayem, but you know, initially it was kind of laughable, the things he talked about, like, you know, like jewelry and underwear. You were just a bit kind of, oh mate, know your role, come on, chill. This is getting quite serious, and the language and the behaviours, it's just really quite scary if this man is able to put these things through. I know that his name escapes me, the head of Motorsport UK, Richards, used to be Pro Drives.
Dave Richards.
He's taken him to court because he was denied entry to a meeting because he refused to sign one of those NDAs, which is again a right that he is, but as the head of Motorsport UK, he's allowed to be there. He's a member of the FIA, an FIA member. He refused to sign an NDA because they were like, everyone needs to sign that before they get into this meeting. He's like, well, why? I need to go back to my members to discuss this. This is, you know, and they went, well, you're not getting in. So he's taken them to court. So there's so many other things going on. It's just a very strange set of behaviours from this man. And it's going to rumble on. in all intents and purposes. And for me personally, I just wish December would hurry up and we don't have him for another 4 years because I would rather be where it used to be before. We touched on this a couple of weeks back, where it's Jean Todt, the head of the FIA or FIA president, the FIA president,
Yeah.
and that's it. So the only time you really see him, he might come on for a wee special interview about a certain thing, or if
Or like we said, let Flavio have that and just bring back the bunga bunga parties of Max Mosley
well,
because
yeah,
it can't be worse, can it?
no.
But
So
yes, that is. I didn't think he could get worse after a couple of weeks ago, but they give it and they take it away, don't they? It's like, okay, I won't fine you for
exactly,
swearing anymore, but by the way, no one better dare challenge me, or you might end up in a river. Is kind of
yes,
what that language
Yeah.
is suggesting. Um, right. Any other news then before we move on?
nope,
Okay, let's get on to the fun one then. Alpine, as we mentioned, there was precious little other kind of major news between Miami and Imola, other than the fascinating story at Alpine. I'll give you the cliff notes of it, and then we'll get into it. Obviously, following Miami, it was announced that Oliver Oakes was leaving the team. The team principal was leaving with immediate effect, and that broke as we were recording the Miami review race last weekend, the Miami review podcast last weekend. Um, the following morning, then, I believe it was Wednesday morning, it was announced that Jack Doohan had been dropped and Franco Colapinto was going to be taking his seat. This was heavily rumored, and some of Franco's sponsors actually leaked that weeks ago. So this was not a reaction to Doohan's pretty shocking Miami weekend. Anyway, this was actually their plan from a while ago that Franco would get the drive from Imola because basically his backers have said to Alpine, we're going to give you a lot of money, but he needs to drive the car properly. And there's no two ways about that. So, I mean, nobody with half a brain saw Franco Colapinto coming into that Alpine team and not driving very soon. It was then announced that Flavio Briatore is technically back as the team principal, though he hasn't used that language. He will just oversee team operations, which is what the team principal does. But anyway, it then got even weirder with the story that Oliver Oakes and Flavio Briatore said that his stepping in had absolutely nothing to do with Colapinto. It was just the most spectacularly odd timing ever. Oliver Oakes basically fled to Dubai to meet his brother, who's involved in some sort of conspiracy or crime relating to stolen goods or money from the high tech team and the Mazepins. That's a really, really rough version of it. And I think we have to get into that one first. We talk about the drivers later, they're not even as important anymore. Uh, James, do you have any more like concrete detail of what has Oliver Oakes done?
Well, first of all, I thought we got rid of the Mazepins. I didn't think they'd be back in our
It
lives
wasn't on my bingo
again.
card for this season
No.
at all.
I saw I saw a nice rumor that said that he was caught with upwards of $1 billion in his car as they were trying to buy the Alpine team, which I highly doubt. But yeah, it all seems a bit smoking ladders. Smoking ladders. That's not the phrase. Smoking daggers at the moment. That it's an interesting that obviously William Oakes' brother is still working within the high tech team, was caught with some suspicious things slash money in his car at Silverstone Park as well. So like caught red-handed, Um, so that was quite interesting. And then they both now fled. I don't know because I think William was arrested, wasn't he? And they obviously let out.
And
And
fled to
then
Dubai.
fled to Dubai, which is always a non-suspicious move. Let's get immediately out of the country because I've done nothing wrong. So
To somewhere we can't be extradited from.
yes. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to hearing more.
I'll quickly jump in. So the brother William has been remanded in custody. So Oliver's actually went, oh, bleep, and left. So that's a wee bit worse. I think it doesn't. The optics aren't
Okay.
great. So reading
So
here
is
on
William
Sky,
still in custody? Is that what they're
yeah. So
saying?
he got. So basically, he got arrested. He was transferring criminal property on Friday, the 2nd of May, when he stopped at Silverstone Park with a large amount of cash, possession of a large amount of cash. He appeared in Northampton Magistrates Court on Saturday, the 3rd of May, and was remanded in custody. As far as I can see, he's not been released since. However, the brother has got on a plane and went to Dubai and left his very well-paid job at Alpine.
We did question that. Why he's what 36, Ollie Oaks or something like that. He's literally
Yeah, 37, yeah.
30, literally only 5 years older than me, and I'm in no shape to be running a Formula One team, even one as piss stupid as Alpine at the moment. And we did think it was suspicious, even with Flavio Briatore coming in and making decisions about the drivers, that, at 37, you do not up and leave even a shit show that Alpine is as team principal just because you disagree with the driver change. It just doesn't happen. No, no, you don't get that opportunity to go from F2 to F1 manager straight away. Not even like brought in as like a race director or like a race engineer, something like that. Straight in as team principal from Formula 2 team. Um, yeah, we were suspicious that something else had happened, but it's a laundry list of ludicrous. Just it's so Alpine. It couldn't be worse. And we had the list of like who's left the team since 2016.
I will just get that because I
If you
have it
have that,
here.
yes, please. And
Wait.
they are. I mean, I feel like I say this every bloody week now, but it's not a funny joke anymore. It hasn't been for a while, if I'm being completely honest.
Mm.
But it's a total joke. Oscar Piastri has officially scored more points in his Formula One career than Alpine have ever.
I bet he's chuffed with his decision as well.
The
I
happiest
bet he
man
was
in the
like,
whole world.
thank God he didn't sign that contract.
The happiest man. Like imagine like we would have lost Oscar Piastri from potentially this year's world champion was very nearly probably not in the sport just because of how much of a joke that team is. Have you got it there, Coops?
I do. So Oliver Oaks, we're making assumptions that he's left because of his brother William Oaks. However, there could also be an argument that he felt that his position was untenable due to the fact of Briatore and Colapinto coming in and things like that. And it was basically like the sponsor said he's coming in, so he's coming in regardless.
That's good and
So
balanced. You can have a job in the BBC now.
Yeah.
So Oliver Oaks is added to the list. So here we go. Senior advisors, we have Sarah Abitable, we have Marcin Badowski, Alain Prost, Lauren Rossi, Otmar Snafner, Bruno Famin, and Oliver Oaks have also all left. I'm not finished. Respected paddock figures like Pat Fry, Matt Harmon, and Alan Permain have also departed. That's not that long a time for
It's like
all of them
Watford.
to go.
Yeah.
And then drivers.
And the for drivers, the shambolic way that they dealt with Ocon after Monaco, basically sacked him, but he was still in the car, and then they let him go. Was it a couple of races before the end of the season or something?
Yeah,
Like,
the last after Qatar, yeah.
Yeah, they just were like, in you go, crack on.
Fernando Alonso decided he wanted nothing to do with them. Esteban Ocon's probably the happiest man in the world to have been fired last year.
So you've got the situation with Alonso, who wanted to stay at Alpine, but they wanted to give him a 1-year deal. At the time, how stupid can you be? It's Fernando Alonso. He only wanted a couple of years. He didn't want like 10 years. I mean, come on. They put out that unbelievably stupid
Press release
saying that Piastri's going to drive for them. And he's like, excuse me, sorry, what now? And just said, indeed, I will not. And then it found out they actually didn't have a contract to sign him in the first place because the legal team got it wrong. Or as Otmar Staffster said on a podcast there recently, I had nothing to do with him. It was his legal department. He didn't know anything about it. Of course he didn't.
Of course he didn't.
Yeah. So, and the funny thing about that whole situation was McLaren signed them, were very quiet. They were just like, yeah, we signed them. We spoke to him in Silverstone. We dealt with it then. And then, but it was Alpine that were like, no, we have, like, it's here somewhere. Hold on. No, that's the a Formula One team for dummies. Oh, hold on. Keep that. And they never had a contract. And it was an arbitration for sport, and they went, yeah, you don't have a contract.
Don't have a contract.
And you have to pay McLaren's legal fees as well. Crack on, go away. So they went from having 2 drivers to no drivers. They've went through a shitload of, basically team principles. Considering the fact that you've got people like Christian Horner who have been in Red Bull since the start, and they've went through that many, and then you've got people like Pat Fry, Alan Permain. Now, Alan Permain, I don't know what he does, but the fact that he's good at his job, that I know the name, shows you something. You're like, you just hear Alan Permain, you just know, yeah, he's in Formula One, he's great. Yeah, you may not know who these people are, but they're good at what they do.
It all goes back to this is not sadly this is not new. It's more dramatic than it's ever been. And bear in mind, this is the team, and we'll get onto that now in a sec. That did Crashgate. So they're not exactly a clean
And the
team.
guy who was part of that is
Is
back out
back
the
at the
team.
head. Yes, he is. Because that's just that.
If
I think
there's
that was
if there's
actually
a
on my bingo.
safety car, if there's a safety car in Imola and one of them win the race, we
Did you
know
see,
something suspicious has happened.
did you see the meme of
Yeah.
Franco and Briatore talking? Is like, you want me to hit the wall on what lap?
I mean,
um,
the fact that was funny because Bruno Senna even tested that out in free practice.
Yeah.
You see the spin, and then it was like, could you hide it? And just to be balanced, because apparently I work for the BBC now, he has not been charged with anything. And yes, there was a ban that was up, but it was overturned when he went to appeal. So he is free to be there, with no black mark against his character whatsoever.
yeah. No black
Very
mark
balanced.
against his career. Big black
No.
mark against his character.
He
Um,
walked into Renault beforehand with a black mark against his character. Come on.
But
Yeah.
as I was saying, like this comes back to Renault don't give a crap about Formula One, and Renault, the company, the car company, they barely give a crap about cars, to be honest. They don't exactly make the best cars in the world. Some of their hot hatches are pretty exciting, but their normal cars are more likely to explode on the side of a motorway than actually get you to where you're trying to go. Hilariously, that always passed over to their Formula One cars as well. Their engines might have won some championships, but they blew some alternators on the way. Obviously, the V8s were remarkably unreliable, and without Adrian Newey's double diffuser or blown diffuser, they wouldn't have won anything. But
There
they
was at least 1 year where Red Bull should have won the championship, but didn't because of the Renault engine. And I don't know if that was the last year before the whole Netflix, Drive to Survive, Habitable and Horner and stuff. But it became, I think it ended up becoming Tag Heuer, but it was pretty much agreed with.
2018,
It was pretty much agreed within the paddock that the car itself was the best car on the grid, but the engine was a piece of something.
and they didn't want a
Um,
Renault badge on it.
yeah, well, no, I mean the fact that they lost the championship was because basically it was because of the Renault power unit.
Well, it's
Uh,
what it's why they fell apart. But if you look back in their history, and I don't have this on the paper in front of me, I'm just going off a memory of this, so excuse me if I get them wrong. But they won the championships in 2005 and 2006, lost their star driver to McLaren. Um, for 2007. He came back in 2008 and they did Crashgate.
and he won that
And
race.
he did win that
Yeah.
race. If for some reason you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what Crashgate is, one, are you four? And two, where have you been? Because everybody should know what Crashgate is. If you don't, I urge you to look it up because it's arguably one of the most important moments in Formula One history in terms of controversy. I don't know, I can't believe I had to say that, but look it up. I promise it's a good read, or I'm sure there's some documentaries on it, which would be even better. 2009, they were crap. 2010, they became Lotus for some reason.
Mhm.
2013, Kimi Räikkönen nearly bankrupted them because they had absolutely no money and they gave him a pay per point contract. He then went
And he
on and
got like
scored
200 and something.
350 something points, and they owed him 56 odd million quid, which they didn't have. Um, then they pulled out again.
Yeah, but before they pulled
For
out again, Raikkonen refused to drive for them, remember? And they came out and said it was a back problem, but he was like, "You're
Yeah.
not paying me."
yeah,
They
yeah.
I was
That's
with
how that came
aye.
out. Yeah. So then
And then they hired Maldonado, which is always good as
yeah,
well.
they had that weird double tusk
Oh yeah.
thing in. This is
Yeah.
all still in the Lotus years. They came back as Renault in 2016 with their super duper 5-year plan to be champions. Nope, they haven't done it yet. It's been 9 years.
Ah,
And
but
then
they keep resetting that.
oh, they do, yeah. So it's
Yeah,
no,
every time they change the livery or something,
yeah.
they're like, no, 5 years from now. No, oh, wait a minute, sorry, now.
So
No,
that
now,
didn't
now we're Alpine, so we'll start again now.
that didn't happen. Then they got a little bit of good news when they got Danny Ricciardo in 2019. That was a big boost for the team. It was it was a sign of good things, and they had an upward trajectory. They outdid McLaren. They were going up and up and up, and then Danny Ricciardo left, and everyone's like, "Oh, why would you leave for McLaren?" And McLaren got good again, and Renault became Alpine for some reason, um, because they wanted to promote their sports cars, which are just essentially Clios and fancy frocks. Um, I'm not a fan of Renaults, if you can't tell. Um, they had that weird bulgy airbox,
Oh, the big fat one. Oh,
big
yeah, I
fat
remember
airbox.
that.
Just an
No one else
interesting,
had that. It was
no,
bizarre.
fascinating design concept. But they got Fernando Alonso back again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
okay, again, bit of a media spin. They seem to be just surviving on driver names for the past couple of years. And okay, so Alpine, it's Renault's sports car brand, and they're trying to build up the sports car brand. And it's the classic win on Sunday, sell on Monday. But of course, they haven't. They won a race. They did win a race, kind of by accident with Esteban Ocon because Fernando Alonso's defensive driving in Hungary.
No,
Big
no.
media spin.
That was because Bottas thought half the grid was
Half
a
the
bowling
He's
alley.
playing bowling,
Like,
yeah. Well,
come on,
that's true.
just...
But the bowling led to Fernando's defense against Lewis. Because if Lewis had got past him, Lewis would have won that race by about 25 seconds. So they did win a race. They didn't sell any Alpines the next day, so that concept kind of went out the window. And then they just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse to the point that Renault are now like, do you know what? We couldn't be bothered putting Renault engines in our Renault car anymore, so we're just going to buy Mercedes engines because they're better than us and we couldn't be arsed to fix the problem
Yeah,
because
well,
they've been stuck with a 25, 30 horsepower underpowered engine because even though they were given the opportunity to rectify that, they were literally given special dispensation to make the fucking engines better because they were deemed to be too slow for Formula One and too underpowered. They basically just couldn't give a crap. And they didn't manage it. And now they've just pulled out. And all of this to caveat, I don't blame any of the men and women who work in Alpine, in Viry, in Enstone. This is none of their faults. We've said this before with the likes of Sauber or Haas back in the day. Like the people, or Williams especially during the designing on an Excel sheet and the car not turning up to testing. None of this is the fault of the men and women who work very very hard every single day, who are passionate about motorsport and engineering, who want to go to work, build this spaceship prototype and have it race every weekend. It's not their fault. It is a just substantial lack of bother from the Renault board, who quite simply have never given a crap about Formula One. Ever.
yes. And the man who's at the head of all this is Luca De Meo. He's the CEO. He's the Renault CEO. So it's Renault Group CEO, the main man. He's overseen all of this. The fact, and I think it was another the race.com. I was listening to a podcast about this stuff a while ago, and basically they're in the agreement that getting rid of the engine department, the power unit department, is because they're getting ready to sell the team. The team's not going to be Alpine soon enough, whether it be next year or the year after, because they've got some pretty decent investors from what
Big
they've said.
investors.
Big investors, big celebrity people. I mean, it's that Deadpool Ryan Reynolds
Ryan
who just
Reynolds.
he's buying everything or anything he can think of
Which
because he's
again was
got
another
too much money.
which is another potential great news story for them. Ryan Reynolds comes in, he goes, "Look what I've done with Wrexham, who are now up into they've been promoted 3 years in a row." And you think, "Oh, wow, amazing! Like, is Ryan Reynolds going to, turn Alpine around?" Obviously not. But again, they spun that as a good news story. Their media people must be paid pretty well, like their PR people, because my God, they're the busiest people in the whole world.
Yeah, because they're the meme. They're that meme when you walk into the room with your pizzas and the place is falling to bits and there's fire everywhere. That's them. That's the Alpine PR team. Yeah, it's
Literally.
fine. Don't worry about
So
it.
all of that to come back to, what that essentially boils down to is, as we're recording, we're coming up to Imola this weekend, is Franco Colapinto's in the car for 5 races. James, why?
Yeah, it seems a bit of a strange move. I think it's probably them trying to save a bit of face by saying, "Well, we gave Doohan 6 races. Let's give Colapinto an equal, like a similar amount of races to try and prove himself," rather than saying, "Joe, I was going to stick the kid in for the rest of the year rather than only giving one of them 6 races." It's an interesting one. It felt like, unfortunately for Jack Doohan, it felt inevitable that as soon as they signed Colapinto, he was going to be in that car at some point, and Jack Doohan would have to done an incredible job. So I also not feel bad for Colapinto because I think he's a decent driver, but who knows what it's a little bit like the Red Bull move. Like, it's not going to help either driver. You doing this mid-season, stick him in late, see what happens. It's bizarre, but I think it's obviously it's a bit of a reaction. They get the money in, going to get the driver and see what happens. But 5 races, I think he will stay there for the season. I don't see them doing back in, so this flip flopping could be.
Mm-mm.
Where do you stop? They just did the whole season, but 5 race stints. That seems insane.
Yeah,
But
I don't see that. It's more likely that Paul Aaron will get a job in Silverstone.
Yeah, it's not a bad
that's what
shout.
I was just going to say. Like, if they're saying they're doing it from comparison, then the next 5 races after Colapinto need to be Paul Aaron,
Hmm.
because you're not putting Doohan back in the car. Doesn't matter what happens, you can't put him back in. Now you've kind of made your bed, so you either have to do that with Colapinto, get the money off the sponsors, put him back into the reserves, because remember, Doohan's still employed by them.
Hmm.
He's the reserve driver and doing the sim work. I'd be raging, but fine.
They
Uh,
have 4 reserve drivers, officially.
Even
Franco
that's too
Colapinto,
many.
way too many. When you think that like McLaren, Mercedes, Williams, and Alpine share one, um, it's Valtteri Bottas, and he's just ticking off side quests, going and testing all of those Mercedes-powered cars this year. They've got Franco
it's what
Colapinto, who's now their driver. Sorry, it's what?
one of them's left to go and be the reserve driver for half.
Yeah, Rio Harikawa, I
Aye.
believe.
So
So he was there. He's gone. Kush Mindy apparently is on their books as well,
Interesting. Mm.
which is interesting. And Jack Doohan. But even assuming that Harikawa, if he's still there, that's 4 drivers. To give them 5 races each, they still won't make the end of the bloody season. They'll have to put Jack Doohan back in at the
Back
end of
in.
the season again, or sign someone new. And it's just bizarre. So,
Yeah.
Rio Hakara moved
To
to Alpine
Haas,
from
didn't he?
No, he moved from McLaren. Um, I think he's still there.
I felt
he,
wasn't there a
he,
reserve driver that drove for 2 different teams in
yeah,
consecutive
no,
practice sessions?
yeah, that was him because
Wasn't it
he
like Alpine
tested
and
for
Haas or
Haas.
something?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
tested for Haas.
Sorry, the other one on that who's not on that list right there is Paul Aaron, of course,
Yeah. He's probably the better driver, actually.
who is the better driver. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
quite a good driver. Now he's been in F2 for a while now though. He hasn't exactly blown it up. He's an okay driver, but I don't think, of all of them, I suppose none of them really have. Franco Colapinto's a good driver, and he won in Imola last year, I think. Yeah, he won in Imola last year in Formula 2. Uh, Bashing Paul Aaron out of the way, if I remember that one correctly. Little bit of argy bargy into turn one, up and over the curbs. So that's interesting that the two of them are stablemates now. Jack Doohan, we already talked about him. Rio Harikawa, I'll be perfectly honest, I know virtually nothing about. And Kush Miney, I rate as one of the worst drivers in Formula 2. So he might know quite a lot about, and he's rubbish by Formula 2 standards, so it's weird. He's probably the only one who was like, oh, I'll take an Alpine reserve thing because, I've nothing else, and nobody else wants to touch them with a 10-foot barge pole. Because why would they? But
Yeah.
the question then, of course, becomes, this has probably ruined Jack Doohan's career, whatever about the Red Bull seat being poisoned. This is worse because at least in the Red Bull seat, you're going up against Max Verstappen and you have sort of the get out of jail free card of he's Max Verstappen, I'm not Max Verstappen. In this, okay, Pierre Gasly's a good driver, but he is not Max Verstappen. You can't put a driver in, ruin his career, and say, yeah, but he was beaten by Pierre Gasly. With all respect to Pierre Gasly, it doesn't have the same weight as, oh, but he was absolutely destroyed by Max Verstappen. Not the same thing. So, what do we think? You were saying there, Coops, that they probably won't be Alpine for much longer, and I
No.
strongly doubt they will be because even the car brand are moving towards electric cars now. Genuinely, they've released like 2 this year. They're turning that into like an electric sports car brand. So something like Formula E, and obviously they're in WEC as well with Mick Schumacher. They're doing quite well there because
They
it's
do well, yeah.
essentially the hypercar series is essentially a spec series compared to Formula One. Um, uh, who would buy them? Because who was it? Was it Otmar Safnauer said he was potentially lining up some potential new teams. There is space in the Concord Agreement for a 12th team. Otmar Safnauer said, I'll do it, and he's talking to people. Would he make a ploy to take over at Enstone again?
No, why wouldn't you? The issue is with the dilution fee is going to be absolutely insane.
With 11 teams, it will, yeah.
When the new Concord agreement comes up, because that was the big thing about Cadillac slash Andretti, like the 400 million. With the
Mm.
previous Concord, Formula One wasn't quite in a particularly healthy place. 400 million was pretty decent. Alpine, who aren't a particularly great team, are valued almost around $1 million. A
I think
billion dollars, I should say.
I think it's officially like 1.2 for Alpine or something like that.
Yeah, so they're
Crazy.
not. it's really obscene. And the thing about Formula One with the cost cap and stuff, you don't need a lot of money. Gone are the days where you're doing Toyota and spending the GDP of a small independent country to get no wins. You don't need that anymore. So it's a franchise model. A bit, it's a very much an American system they've used. It's a franchise model. So there will be a lot of people and a lot of people with more money than sense that will probably want to come in and take it on. You've got Cadillac that are coming in with an engine in 28, 29. I think they've formally kind of said that they're going to go down that route. You've got Ford, who will eventually come in because they're coming in with Red Bull. You've got Ferrari, you've got Mercedes and Honda. So you've got a lot of decent manufacturers out there. And they've shut down their engine department or their power unit department. So, when somebody comes in, that's a complication. Don't need to worry about. You just go to one, somebody go, I'll buy one.
Yeah.
And if you can't get somebody to agree, regulations will say, well, that'll probably be like Honda because they're only supplying one team. So they've got to do it.
They've have to do it, yeah.
So that it's a very, very, very appetizing prospect for people that have the money and they know how to do it. And there's people out there that will want to do it. So
Yep, there certainly is. It's they give good news stories. I'll give them that. That'll do it for Alpine. Let's move it back to Imola. If you've been listening on YouTube, by the way, we will split this up into two episodes. We will be splitting up the Alpine episode to have its own separate thing on our YouTube channel. So if you want to listen back, we will separate this out because something tells me we might need to refer back to this one specifically in about 5 races, give or take.
I wonder where you got that number from.
Oh, I'm making that up off the top of my head. Right then, Imola, back to that very quickly before we finish up. Let's have some predictions for the weekend. So, gentlemen, could I please get your poll, your top 3, and a surprise? James, I'll start with you.
Oh, it could be relatively boring here. I think we're going to see the 4-man continue that form. I think Piastri is going to take pole. I think he's going to run away with the race as well. But I think we're going to see another McLaren 1-2, with Piastri and Norris taking the top 2. But I'm going to go for Antonelli on the third step of the podium, which is also, I guess, also my surprise as well, actually, because I think he could. I have a feeling it could be a good one. Maybe a bit of contact at the first corner. Max Verstappen spins out and leaves the rest of them to fight for third. So I'm going to take Antonelli in my third place.
Okay. Coops, your poll, top 3, and surprise.
So I'm going to say Max will get pole. And that's my surprise. Well, no, it's not because Max. But I'm going to say that Piastri will win the race. And it'll be Piastri. Piastri, George Russell, Max Verstappen top 2.
Okay. What is your surprise?
That top 3.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say Lando on pole. I know I say that every week, but I do actually think 2-week break will have done him the world of good. I think this track will suit him if he could just stay in his head. Fast flowing. If he can get into a rhythm, he'll have a full suite of practice. It's a completely normal weekend. Hopefully, the alleged rain on Friday won't curtail practice too much. If Lando can get into a rhythm, I think this track will suit him down to the ground. I think he'll be much quicker. So I'm going to say Lando on pole. I think he'll win the race from there if he can get off the line properly. I think George is going to finish second and Kimi's going to finish third. That is my shout. But that's not my surprise. My surprise, and I'm really sorry to my girlfriend who's sitting downstairs who's going to kill me when she hears this, is a Ferrari double DNF.
Yeah.
That's a big, yeah.
It's a big one, but if
Yeah.
there was ever a place to do it again, it's Lewis Hamilton's first time in front of the Tifosi. Because I don't want it to happen in Monza, because I'd be there and I want to be part of
That's
the
fair
madness when they win that race, which they probably will. But this one, I don't think that track is going to suit them at all. 2, I don't think their upgrades, just the way they're going this year, whatever they did to their car, they just don't seem to understand it. Lewis cannot get to grips with this car. George Russell and now Kimi Antonelli have proved that the Mercedes was not the problem. They had the porpoising, they dialed out the porpoising. George Russell won races. Lewis won in Silverstone, but George Russell won races. It was way quicker than Lewis last year, and is proving it this year. He stepped up and he is Mr. Consistent by every single metric. He's been brilliant this year. Kimi's now coming on form. The Mercedes was not the problem. I've said it multiple times. I'm surprised more people don't say this, is that Lewis can't do these cars. It's as simple as that. I said it last year, said at the start of last year when it was announced he's moving to Ferrari. Moving to Ferrari is not going to magically make him the quickest driver in Formula One again. He's the best statistically. He was the quickest driver for a long, long time. He's not even close to that level anymore. I'm sorry. Max, Lando, Oscar, George, Charles are all leaps and bounds ahead of this version of Lewis Hamilton. All that to say, I think a Ferrari double DNF. I won't go as far as to say I think they'll hit each other, but they were not the best of friends in Miami, were they? So there's a little bit of niggle and tension coming in there, I think, and yeah, I can see that happening this weekend, and that'll just put pay to that. It might be the best thing that ever happens to them because if that happens, they give up on this season completely and they actually do next year properly.
But
Because
they
it was
won't because it's Ferrari.
no, of course they will. I'm saying they can. I'm not saying they will. There's a big difference. Yeah, so that is our predictions. You note them down, Coops. We'll revisit them next week.
We do. I do have them, and just to we'll go back over and make sure I've got them right. So Sean is going for a Norris pole, Norris win
Yep.
with Russell and Antonelli. That's
Yep.
his top three, and Ferrari double DNA.
Sorry, but yep.
Yep. I am going for a Max pole, Piastri, Russell, and Max is the top three. And James is going for Piastri pole, Piastri win, Norris second, Antonelli third. So let's see how wrong we are.
Yes, let's see how wrong we are. We'll, of course, revisit that. Wherever you are listening, comment below and let us know whether you're on, if you're looking at this on YouTube in particular, or if you're on any of our socials and see these clips, let us know who do you think is going to be the top three and on poll. If you are listening on YouTube, of course, we do stream all of these episodes live now on YouTube, so we'd love to get you involved in these, get some questions coming in, get some interaction, get your opinions as we're going through this as well. Head over to our YouTube channel, Everything F1. Just hit subscribe. Ding the bell as well and you get notified when we go live. We usually record our episodes on Tuesdays or Wednesdays depending on our own schedules, but we'd love to get you involved in that. Best way to do that is over on YouTube. We stream live, so head over Everything F1, hit subscribe, hit the bell and get involved with us. And of course, as soon as we hit 500 subscribers, we will be giving away a Lego Speed Champions set, so nice prize for you there just for hitting the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Very lastly, then, I will give you the times for the race this weekend. Again, Spogo standard European race weekend. So the times, UK Ireland, are delightfully average. Unless you've got plans on Sunday, in which case, ignore me on this one. Friday, practice 1 will be at 12:30 in the afternoon. Practice 2 will be at 4. Saturday, practice 3 will be at 11:30 and qualifying will be at 3. And then the race is the perfectly reasonable and normal European time of 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is delightful. So we will leave it at that. Thank you very, very much, gentlemen, James and Coops.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
I have been Sean. We have been Everything F1. Go check us out on all socials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Head over to our website, everythingf1.com, for daily news and articles. And as always, check out our fantastic sponsors, theraceworks.com, for all of your F1 and motorsports merch. Use code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site-wide. We'll be back next week to review the Imola Grand Prix and to get straight into the preview of Monaco, because, of course, this is the start of a triple header. But until then, we will say goodnight and we'll see you next week. Bye now.